Hi, my name is Nicola Kefalianos, a Gen Z uni student wanting to get onto the impossible feeling property ladder. And this is my dad, John. He's a mortgage broker and a property developer.
Thanks, Nicola. Looking forward to this episode because I believe for a first-home buyer, you should always look at where you can benefit from the subsidies that governments are providing. And for first-home buyers at the moment, there's a number of subsidies available for construction loans and building new properties. So it's something that first-home buyers should look into very seriously in buying land and building.
So is this episode all about buying a house and land?
Yes, it is. So it's all about the process of buying land, building, and the benefits of doing that.
So what are some of the benefits?
Okay, so let's run through what's available in South Australia at the moment. So the benefits of buying land and building, first of all, in South Australia, there's no stamp duty on the land purchase at all. So you can buy land with no stamp duty. And on top of that, you also get a grant of $15,000 for the first homeowners grant.
Yeah, which we've talked about previously.
Which we've talked about on a previous episode. But it's also important to note that every state is different. Like, for example, in the Northern Territory at the moment, which was recently released, the first homeowners grant there is actually $50,000 for a first home buyer to build their first house.
So significantly larger.
So you can see every state is different in what they're offering, but all states are definitely encouraging first home buyers to buy land and building. And there's also a lot of benefits in doing that as well.
So what is the process for this?
First of all, it's a similar process to buying an established house where you've got to understand what your budget is. So you've got to know what your borrowing capacity is, work out what you can buy. And that's where your finance broker will work with you to work out what's your price point of what you can actually afford. So that's the first step. The process of buying land and building, once you know what your budget is first of all trying to source in an area where you want to live, where you would live. Find some land and also speak to builders that will be able to build a house for you as well.
Yeah.
So let's just work with some round numbers now, and let's just assume the land purchase price is around $330,000 and build of say $380,000 just for this scenario. So the benefit in South Australia, no stamp duty, $15,000 grant. As opposed to, now if you were to buy an established house for that same figure, your stamp duty would be close to $40,000. So you're straight away saving on $40,000 stamp duty plus a $15,000 first homeowners grant.
Yep.
There's over $50,000 saving there by buying a house to land package or buying land and building as opposed to buying an established house. So straight away you're in front by $50,000 plus, and that's coming off your deposit that you have to contribute as well. So you can probably buy a land and build with a deposit of between $40,000 and $50,000 as opposed to buying an established house for the same figure with a deposit of $100,000.
So that's covering the affordability sides of land and house packages. What are some other benefits like customisation and things?
So when you're buying land and you're building, you're generally adding value to that property. So you're buying land, you're building a house, you're customising the house to suit your needs. So you're building the house with what you like, what kitchens you like, what tiles you like. So you're actually adding value to that property. And in most cases, especially more recently, that end value of that property is a lot more than what it's cost you for land and build.
Yeah.
So there are some significant benefits in adding some capital growth to your purchase and to your land and build.
And considering it's a brand new house, that's also a major benefit.
Huge benefit. So building a brand new house, no maintenance costs, easy to maintain.
You can get the structural things right from the beginning.
Correct, yep. And it's brand new. It's yours, brand new from the start. Nobody else lived in it. So definitely some huge benefits there in buying land and building.
So if I was to buy land and build and customise my own house, would I have to live in it for a long period of time?
So at a minimum, you have to build this house, live in it for 6 months.
And then after that period, I can rent it out, say?
You could potentially rent it out, yes.
Could I even sell it?
You could sell it as well, yep. So in order to take advantage of the no stamp duty, the first homeowners grant, and also then building a brand new house, you need to be lived in for a minimum of 6 months. But the other benefit of this is it doesn't necessarily have to be sold. You could turn that into an investment property. So the benefit of having an investment property is that it is a brand new property, low maintenance.
People are going to want it because it's brand new.
Correct. Easy to rent. And one of the benefits of renting out a brand new property and having this as an investment property is that you can claim depreciation. So depreciation is the value of that build depreciated over a certain period of time, which is it's not a physical expense, but the value of that property is coming off as an expense off your tax returns. So, for example, if you're earning $70,000 a year and there's depreciation of $15,000, so your taxable income is reduced, which means you pay less tax. So by having a brand new property as an investment, there's definitely benefits there.
So you can claim that amount.
You can, yep. It's normal. It's some more calculations that come into it. For example, it's your rental income minus your interest costs minus your depreciation. At the moment, rental income will probably cover interest close to, and then it's mainly the depreciation then claim as an expense.
So what's the process of working with the builder, and what do I need to look out for?
So first of all, when you're looking at your land, you're normally buying land in a new subdivision, which means it might be a bigger land division, which might be all up 500 houses. So you might buy at stage one where there's only 50 houses. As those stages get built out, the value of that whole area is going to improve because it's becoming a new subdivision. So benefits there is if you can get in early on a new subdivision, the chances are there's going to be more capital growth. So first of all, it's buying the land. The second step is building. So when you are speaking to builders, a lot of builders are starting to offer fixed price footings and fixed price contracts because a lot of first home buyers are scared about getting variations because they're generally not in a position to be able to afford the variations.
Variations as in?
For example, you might sign a contract with a builder today for $350,000. They get you in and then do their engineering.
So the overall cost will increase.
What happens, they do their engineering and then they might hit you with a variation of say $20,000 to $30,000 and say because the footing design is now greater than what we allowed for, there's a variation cost of $20,000 to $30,000. That there affects your situation and how much money you need to contribute. So it's important to understand that and that builders do that and to try to choose a builder that is offering a fixed price contract, because if you can mitigate any risk you've got or any risk by having a fixed price contract, the better off you'll be. So keep an eye on builders that are offering fixed price contracts because there's definitely benefits in builders that are doing that. So the process is you buy the land, you choose your builder, you try to go to a builder that's offering a fixed price contract. You then go through the process of making your selection. So you go choose your floorboards, your kitchens, your tapware, etc., and you choose the style of house that you're buying. In keeping in mind, you've always got to know what your budget is because you can, for example, upgrade your bench tops to say a thick stone bench top, which might cost you an extra $3,000, or you might change your kitchen.
So being mindful of your budget all the time.
Being mindful of your budget all the time, and make the builder aware of what your budget is because you don't want them
so
to
they
be,
can't show. They don't show me expensive things.
Correct. Yeah. So there's things that you can do to a builder to still make it look good, which won't cost you much money. For example, one thing that I always do when I'm building houses is I go to 2.4 higher doors instead of a standard 2.1. It doesn't cost much extra, but it gives you that perception of the high doors and makes it look a lot better. So there's little things you can do to make a better quality build with less cost, which is important to know about, like the doors. So once you've chosen your builder and you've then signed the contract with them, the finance side of it works very differently. So when you buy an established house, it normally starts off as principal interest right from the start, and you're paying off that loan right from the start.
So how does finance work with land and house packages?
It is very different to buying an established house. So when you buy a land and build, the interest rate is interest only. So what that means is you're not actually paying off the principal off the loan straight away. The loan stays as interest only until the build is completed. The other thing is you're only paying interest on the loan that you draw down. So for example, stage one, you draw down on the land portion, so you settle on the land. In a build, there's normally 5 or 6 stages. So it might be footings, frames, roof, internal gyprock, and finishing off the build. So at each stage, as the builder goes along, they'll send you a progress claim. So it might be footings, might be 15% of the contract. They send you an invoice. The bank will pay that invoice. You only get charged interest on what you've drawn from that loan. So what happens at each stage of the build, your loan will increase. So let's say your loan starts off at say, call it $250 for the land, and it goes up by say $50,000 each stage.
Yeah.
So each stage of the build, your loan's increasing till it gets to the maximum level. Once the build's finished, that loan then switches to principal interest. So
is that when repayments
when you
will
start making your principal repayment? So that's the main difference between buying an established house and buying land and building, is that you're only getting charged interest whilst it's in the construction
and you're not
stage.
having to pay repayments up front until
not principal, only interest. But you're only paying interest on what you've drawn down in the loan.
Yeah.
So does that make sense how the loan gets drawn down? So you buy the land, So it's
And each
300,000 on
step it
land,
gets up.
and you borrow 250. Loans at 250. Stage 1 of the build, footing goes down, $50,000 invoice. Your loan then becomes $300,000. You're then paying interest on $300,000.
Every stage the builder goes through, your loan
Correct.
gets added to.
Yep. So next stage, stage 2, $50,000 invoice. Your loan increases to $350,000.
Yep.
And then you're only paying interest on that portion. And then as it goes along, it gets the completion, and then it switches to principal interest when the build's finished. So that's how finance works for land and construction loans.
That makes sense.
Oh, good.
So what if there are delays with the construction process? Would I have to pay more?
You would have to pay more interest, yes. So that is a risk, and that's why it's important to choose the right builder.
And make them aware of your time frame?
You can try to tie them into a time frame, but it is generally hard for a builder to have a fixed building period, yeah.
So how long would it take to build?
Yeah, good question. So from the time you buy the land, let's say if you bought land off the plan, you might not have to settle for 4 months or 6 months. So in that time of that land becoming ready and that title becoming available, you can start the process of speaking to a builder, getting your building contract sorted out, getting all your council approvals, and hopefully try to start building at a similar time as to when you settle on the land. So once the builder then starts, it probably takes about 6 months from starting to speak to a builder before the builder goes on site. Then it takes a builder between 12, I'd say 15 to 16 month period to build. Most builders are doing it within 12 months, but I'll probably allow a little bit longer just in case.
Yeah. So when you're buying off of the plan from a subdivision, are there recommended builders already?
Sometimes there is, and sometimes they do offer house and land packages. So there might be 3 or 4 builders that are offering house land packages within that land division.
Yeah.
Depending how big the land division is, there's also display homes sometimes set up. So you can actually go to the land division, go speak to builders, 4 or 5 different builders at that time, and they can do a house land package scenario for you. But one of the benefits of buying land is that your options are open. You can go to any builder you want, which gives you flexibility.
Are there any times where you can't choose a builder as the purchaser of the land?
Yeah, good question. So there are subdivisions and land divisions where the builder is tied to that land division, and you have to build, and sometimes you have to build with that builder. Or it might be a smaller smaller subdivision of say 5 to 10 blocks, where the same builder is building all of them as well. So you might be buying it's what they call a house or land package, where you have a land contract and a build contract, but the builder is fixed. So you pretty much got to build with that builder because that builder is doing the whole development. So that does come about quite a bit. And although in doing that, they have to prove to the bank that they can be built independently, because the banks don't like building when the houses are joint, so where they can't be built independently. So it's important to be aware that building can be built independently.
Like physically not joined?
They can be joined, but they've got to be designed in a way that they can be built independently.
Okay.
The reason the banks want that is because if that builder was to go bankrupt, the banks want to know that you can go to any builder to build that property.
Is this the same as buying an apartment off the plan?
Not really, no, because although there are benefits in buying an apartment, because again, there's no stamp duty and you can get the first homeowners grant, with an apartment, you're actually not paying any interest, or you don't actually draw down on your loan until the apartment is finished. So you can't actually settle on that property until it's finished, which there are benefits in as well, because you're not paying interest while it's being built.
Okay.
But generally you pay a higher price for that premium as well. So with an apartment, you buy it off the plan and you settle on completion, whereas where you're buying land and you're building, you settle on the land and then you got to pay for the construction and pay for the interest as you're building.
Okay.
So they are very different.
So how would I know if a house and land package is right for me?
First of all, it's know what you want in a property. So it comes back to those basic principles: the wants, the needs, and the won'ts. So if the property meets your wants and your needs, and it hasn't, and there's no won'ts on that list, then you look at buying that property. So it comes back to your personal situation.
Well, Dad, this has given me a lot to think about when building my first home. It sounds like I can save a lot more money up front with all the concessions in place, but I'm going to have to wait a bit longer for it to get built. Plus, there sounds like there's some risks with the builder costing more and some other risks.
Yes, there is, but it's something that is very manageable as well, though. And why don't we open up the building process in another episode?
Great, looking forward to it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and if you've been thinking about building a property, then this has given you a ton of information to help along that process. I'm Nicola Kefalianos, and you're listening to My First Home Buyer Mentor. Have an awesome week.